Welcome in. It is another special edition of What's Right with Nick Wright as we count down the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years in the NBA. Now, last week's was controversial. We knew it would be because last week's was where I had my one almost, cheat code inclusion, Luka Doncic. That is so this list will age well. I understand Luka is not accomplished enough to be 20th. He hasn't technically accomplished enough to be on the top 50. But sometimes when you know, you know. And I'm telling you right now, if people were making a list of the greatest composers in world history, and someone was like, hey, there's this kid named Beethoven, I think he should be on it. They're like, he's only done one symphony. See, if you put him on the list, you'd feel good about it. So that's the Luka part of it. However, now we're to the top 18. And every single person on this top 18 not only clearly deserves to be there, but what you are going to see is when you hear who we get to and their all-NBA teams and their MVP finishes and their all-time rankings as far as scoring or rebounding, whatever it is, you're going to realize as great as a player such as Chris Paul was, as great as David Robinson was, guys who were just outside of this top 18, this 18 are head and shoulders statistically better than everyone else on this list with the possible exception of James Harden. James Harden's the only one who has a statistical resume, all NBA's MVP finishes, similar to these guys, but Harden obviously has such a non-existent, great playoff resume that he can't be included here. If he had just one singularly great playoff run, he would have been. But so 18, 17, 16 will be today's episode. Oddly enough, they are all power forwards, so you probably know who the three guys are already. But what order will they be in? Number 18, and it pains me to put him here. I'd love for him to be higher. He's one of my favorite people in sports. He was one of my favorite players to watch, but 18th is as high as I could put him.
Number 18, Charles Barkley.
So Barkley had 5 times was first team All-NBA, 5 times second team All-NBA, 1 time third team All-NBA. When it comes to MVPs, he was a 1-time MVP, and 8 times he finished in the top 6. 8 times he was a top 6 MVP finisher, and he won a rebounding title, if you care about that. Never did win a scoring title. Obviously, he was the best player on one finalist, and what you will see about Charles, when you talk about some of the best players in sports history to never win a ring, is Charles' excuse, if you will, for never winning a ring. It's not much of an excuse. We'll get to that momentarily. But before we get to, when he came closest to winning rings, let's just go through the postseason resume. As a rookie in the playoffs, had a 23-11 in an Eastern Conference Finals game versus the 85 Celtics. Again, as a rookie. That entire playoff run, he averaged 15-11 for his Sixers team that went all the way to the conference finals. Again, that's as a rookie. 1986, his second year, in the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs, he had a 31, 26, and 6. Again, 31 points, 20 rebounds, 6 assists, 6 steals in game 1 of the second round of the playoffs in his second year. In game 4 of that series, he had a 37, 14, and 9. He would lose in 7 by 1 point to Milwaukee. Remember, earlier in the list, we talked about Sidney Moncrief and those underrated Bucks teams of the 80s. He averaged 28, 15, and 4 for that series as a second-year player. 1987, played Milwaukee again, this time in round 1, lost in round 1, but averaged 25 and 13. 1989, played Ewing and the Knicks, averaged 27, 12, and 5, but again, lost in round 1. And now this is Barkley's window, 90 to 95, the end of his time with Philly and the beginning of his time with Phoenix. And without spoiling anything here, here's what you need to know. In those 90 to 95, that's 6 seasons. 5 of those years, he made the playoffs. All 5 years, Charles Barkley lost to one of 2 people in the playoffs, Michael Jordan or Hakeem Olajuwon. So why doesn't Barkley have a ring? Well, he kept running into Michael Jordan or Hakeem Olajuwon. So let's go through it. 1990, game 1 of the playoffs, throws up a 38-21 to start the playoffs. Averaged 26, 14, and 4 in round 1 to get out of round 1 for the first time since year 2, 1986 that we talked about. Round 2 against Jordan's Bulls, put up a 30-20 in game 1. Put up a 34, 20, and 8 in game 3, but they lost the series, of course. Then the next year, he played Michael Jordan, lost to Michael Jordan again, and then shortly thereafter went to Phoenix. Phoenix, spoiler alert, this is going to end with him losing to Michael Jordan, but how did he get there? All right, the Western Conference Finals for Charles Barkley. 1993, wins league MVP. It's his best chance to win a title. He's never been to a finals. In fact, he's never been to a game 6 of a conference finals. So what does Barkley do? Against Seattle, Peyton and Kemp in the Western Conference Finals, with the series tied 2 games apiece in game 5, throws up a 43-point, 15-rebound, 10-assist game. Again, critical game 5 of the series to get up in the series, a game away from the NBA Finals, puts up a 43, 15, and 10. And then in game 7, has flatly one of the greatest playoff games anyone has ever played. By game score, I think Basketball Reference might have its game score as top 2 playoff game ever. If you go back and watch it, it's remarkable. When I was doing the research for this list, and I went back and watched what I could find of this game on YouTube, I had Barkley's number from a night of drinking at the NBA Finals years prior. I'd never texted him. I texted him just to tell him how amazed I was with the performance. I was 8 years old when he did this. Game 7 to get to his first and what would be his only NBA Finals against Seattle. 44 points, 24 rebounds to get to the finals. So what does he do in the finals? In game 2, puts up a 42-13 in a game they would lose by 3. In game 4, puts up a 32, 12, and 10 in a game they would lose by 6. Averaged for the playoff run to the finals, 27 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists. For the finals, basically the same. 27 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists. Now, he also is the one that kind of lost Paxson on the shot that won the title. That's going to always, bounce around in his head. But that's what he did. So that's 93's first year in Phoenix, wins league MVP, gets to the finals, is unbelievable on the run to the finals, is very good in the finals, loses to Jordan in what I think was Jordan's finest finals performance ever, that series against the Suns. The next year, starts the playoffs off with a 36-point, 19-rebound, 7-assist, 4-steal game. Averaged for the first round of that playoffs, averaged 37, 13, and 6, including a 56-point, 14-rebound, 4-assist game. But then in round 2, he plays Hakeem Olajuwon, and they lose in 7. The next year, another remarkable round 1, putting up a 34, 14, and 3 average. But then in round 2, they lost to Hakeem Olajuwon in 7 again. Despite the fact, by the way, in that series, he had a 47-12. And then if we're being honest, it was kind of over for him then. Shortly thereafter, he went and joined Hakeem's team. His body started breaking down. He had one more great playoff game the rest of his career. In 1999, against Shaq and Kobe, had a 30-point, 23-rebound, 5-assist game in the only game Houston won in that series. And that was kind of it for Chuck. So he kept running into Jordan and Dream, the 2 greatest players of the 90s, by a wide margin, those 2 guys, and he couldn't get through them. So that's why Charles Barkley is where he is, 18th on the list. We have a caller that wants to chime in on the Chuckster. Go right ahead.
Hey, it's John Gonzalez, host of the Sports Illustrated Weekly podcast here and lifelong Sixers fan. As a native Philadelphian, of course, I think Charles Barkley should be higher than number 18 on the list. I'm not supposed to reveal who's at 17, but I will say I'm preemptively upset by it. Of course, Charles Barkley should be higher than him, not just because he was a better basketball player, but because of the cultural figure that he is and was then and still remains. So his outsized influence all over the place should have him higher. Anyway, the whole thing is terrible. It's absolutely more terrible than my Charles Barkley acts. I'm so sorry. That was awful, but so is your list.
All right, well, that last part, my list is not awful, John. I apologize. We disagree about 17 versus 18. That was the worst Charles Barkley impersonation I've ever heard. So why do I have Barkley 18 and the person John is talking about at 17? Well, we'll discuss that next because the guy at 17 has the regular season resume that everyone knows it's good. I don't think people know quite how good it is. What do you do with a guy who was good, but not great in the postseason, but in the regular season has an argument he was one of the 3 greatest players ever? That's number 17. We'll do him next. All right, welcome back in. What's Right with Nick Wright? 50 greatest players of the last 50 years in the NBA as we continue our countdown and we get to truly the most legendary players in the history of the league. Number 18 was Charles Barkley. Number 17 is a player whose postseason resume, one could argue, is not quite as good as Barkley's, but his regular season resume is truly not only unimpeachable, but it's hard to make an argument that anyone other than LeBron and Kareem clearly have a better totality of regular season work than this player. You probably know who he is.
Number 17, Karl Malone.
So the mailman, 11-time first team All-NBA. That is tied for the second most ever. 2-time second team, 1-time third team, which gives him tied for the 5th most All-NBA teams ever. He's a 2-time MVP with 9 years top 5 MVP finisher. 9 years he was a top 5 MVP finisher. When we started making this list, he was the 2nd all-time leading scorer. LeBron has since passed him. He is now the 3rd all-time leading scorer. He's the 7th all-time leading rebounder. He has the 2nd most minutes of all time. He has a career average of 25 and 10. He's the only player of the last 50 years to have a career average of 25 and 10 other than Joel Embiid, and Embiid has the benefit of not having that end of his career part of it drag him down like most guys do. He has 17 seasons of averaging at least 20 points per game. That's tied for the 2nd most of all time. So again, he's the number 3 all-time leading scorer, number 7 all-time leading rebounder, number 2 all-time in minutes, top 5 in All-NBA teams, his 2nd most first-team All-NBAs ever, the only 25 and 10 guy of the last 50 years, is 17 years averaging at least 20 points per game. So why is he only 17th? Well, it's not because the postseason resume is non-existent, but the postseason resume is not nearly what the regular season resume is. So let's go through the good with a little bit of the bad mixed in. 1988, averaged 32 and 12 for his first career series win, and then averaged 29 and 12 in a 7-game loss to the Lakers, who would go on to win the title, including in Game 7, 31, 15, and 4. So again, young Karl Malone, Game 7 against a Lakers team that would go on to win the title, 31, 15, and 4. Then a couple years without much in the playoffs, then 1991. Had a 38, 13, and 4 to beat Phoenix in round 1, and then had a 40 and 16 in a Game 2 loss in round 2 to Drexler and the Blazers. They would lose that series in 5. 1992, he gets to his first career Western Conference Finals. How does he get there? By eliminating Kemp and Payton in Seattle with a 37 and 13. And then in 92, against Portland in the Western Conference Finals, had a 38 and 14 in a critical Game 5 series, tied 2 games apiece, but they lost in overtime. they would go on to lose the series, and he wasn't great in the final game. 1994, Western Conference Semis, Game 7 against Dikembe. 31 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists to get back to the Western Conference Finals. But lost to Akeem in those Western Conference Finals and then lost to Akeem again in round 1 next year. This is why Akeem's going to be so high on this list. If you notice from the Barkley segment, it's like, what happened to Barkley? Why didn't he make more the finals? Oh, he lost to Akeem. What happened to Malone? Oh, he lost to Akeem. 1996, though, for Karl Malone. Facing elimination in the Western Conference Finals against Seattle in Game 6. 32 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals. But then in Game 7, wasn't great, and he still hadn't been to a finals. Now we're a decade into his career. 1997. This is going to be Malone's moment. He won league MVP that year. It was controversial. A lot of people thought Jordan should have won it. Jordan should have won it. But Malone won league MVP. It's his first league MVP. He's playing Shaq in round 2. Has a 42-9, followed by a 32-20 in games 4 and 5, and they beat Shaq in 5. Utah did. Had a 37-10 in game 3 against the Bulls, down 0-2. And for the series, averaged 24, 10, and 4. Not bad, but he was always efficient in his career. He was only 44% in those finals. The Bulls win in 6. It's another majestic Jordan, performance and Jordan moment, the flu game and all that. And he loses in 6 to Michael, but 24, 10, and 4, not that bad. 98. Gets Akeem in round 1. Has a 31-15 against Akeem. Akeem at this point, now Akeem was older, but is on the downside. Malone, again, had just won league MVP, almost won it again. 31-15 to beat Akeem in round 1. In round 3 against Shaq and Kobe, he had a 30, 11, and 5 to sweep Shaq and Kobe out. Sweep them out in the Western Conference Finals. Then in the finals, they fall down 3-1. What does he do in game 5? 39 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. And then in game 6, the box score looks good. 31 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, but we all know the story there. Bulls down 3, MJ hits 2 free throws. Bulls down 1, Karl Malone has the ball in the right box. MJ comes around the baseline, strips it from him, goes down, hits the jump shot. Stockton misses a desperation 3, and the Bulls win the series. Bulls win the title. So he averaged for that series more than respectable, 25 point, 11 rebound, 4 assists, this time on 50% shooting, but not quite enough. Then in 99, is the league MVP. In round 2, game 6, round 2 in game 6, he has 8 points, and his team goes home. In 2000, starts the playoffs off. Karl Malone, not dead yet. 50-12 to start the playoffs off against Seattle, but they don't go very far. He then eventually signs with the Lakers in 04. In 04, to his credit, he did have a 30-point playoff game, but he got hurt late in the playoffs. It's one of the reasons the Lakers got blown off the court against Detroit. Then his career was over. So he doesn't have a lot of singularly great postseason moments. However, 54 times he scored 30 in a playoff game. That's the 9th most all time. 154 times he scored 20 in a playoff game. That's the 5th most all time. He is 7th all time in playoff minutes, playoff points, and playoff rebounds. So there is some compiling there. I understand that. And he was not, no one's going to argue he was a great playoff performer. He got a little worse come the postseason. But in the regular season, the resume is unimpeachable. That's how he becomes the 17th greatest player of the last 50 years, Karl Malone. Here is a caller who has a Karl Malone question or comment.
John Stockton, when it came to the Utah Jazz and the Stockton-Malone combo, was the more important of the two. I'm just saying. That means that you've got John Stockton as a top 15 player.
No, Rick, I don't have John Stockton in the top 16. We had John Stockton in the top 25. We had John Stockton 24th, which is not at all anything to sneeze at. But Rick's the first person I've ever heard make the argument Stockton was better than Malone. I've literally never heard someone make that argument. Again, Karl Malone 11 times was first team All-NBA. John Stockton 2 times was first team All-NBA. Karl Malone had 9 top 5 MVP finishes. John Stockton had 0 top 5 MVP finishes. So listen, I understand Stockton, all-time leader in assists, all-time leader in steals. It's why he's in the top 25. But no. Stockton's not better than Malone. Nobody actually thought Stockton was better than Malone. I can't believe Rick actually thought that. I love Rick Bucher. Rick is one of my favorite things to say about colleagues of mine who I disagree with a lot. Rick Bucher, great guy, bad takes. This might be the worst non-LeBron Rick Bucher take I've heard. Other than that, I appreciate him contributing to the show. Number 16, one more power forward. This one with a ring. He's next. All right, welcome back in. What's Right with Nick Wright as we continue our special edition, the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years. Next week, we'll be into the top 15. I can't believe we've already come that far. Number 18 we just listed today was Charles Barkley. Number 17 we listed today was Karl Malone. Number 16 plays the same position. However, he has one thing those two men don't have, and he got it under the most difficult of circumstances. And this shows you how much a ring can do for you because, to be candid, he certainly doesn't have the regular season resume of Karl Malone, and he's probably a little shy of the regular season resume of Charles Barkley. But that one postseason run was brilliant enough. Plus, he's got a pretty damn good regular season resume. Number 16, the third greatest foreign-born player as of today in NBA history.
Number 16, Dirk Nowitzki.
Dirk, 4-time first-team All-NBA, 5-time second-team All-NBA, 3-time third-team All-NBA. He won an MVP, and 3 times he finished in the top 3 of MVP voting. He was a 50, 40, 90 guy. And this is something I don't think many people know. He is the 6th all-time leading scorer in NBA history. Again, the number 6 all-time leading scorer in NBA history is one Dirk Nowitzki, and it gets forgotten to some, but it matters. When I say he doesn't have the regular season resume of Malone, that's fair. Malone's 3rd. Of Barkley, maybe I shouldn't have said it of Barkley. Barkley's got more regular top 5 MVP finishes. However, Dirk had one playoff disaster that I think MVP voters then held against him. We'll get to that, but he, of course, more than made up for it. So let's talk postseason. He obviously, was a finals MVP and a champion, but he also was the best player on another finalist. Let's not forget about the 06 finals where after being up 2-0, D-Wade, with a little bit of help from the refs, took that title from him. But Dirk carried 2 Mavericks teams that did not have anything close to another superstar to the finals, won the title one time. We'll get to that eventually. He came into the league 19 years old, so it took him a couple years to make the playoffs. And when he did, 22 years old, first series of his playoff career, he had back-to-back 33-point games against the guy we just talked about, Karl Malone. He also, facing elimination in 01 against Tim Duncan and David Robinson, Dirk Nowitzki, 22 years old, had 42 points, 18 rebounds, 2 assists, and 6 blocks. Pretty good for a 22-year-old. The next year faces Kevin Garnett. And I think a lot of my colleagues would have Garnett ahead of Dirk on the all-time rankings. I don't. It's close, but I don't. The next year played Kevin Garnett, averaged 33 and 16 to sweep KG, including 39 and 17 to close him out. The next year, 03 now, again, Dirk hadn't turned 25 yet, 46 and 10 to start the playoffs, 42 and 10 to go up 3-0 in round 1. Now, he did lose the next 3. It was almost a total disaster. But then in game 7, 31 and 11. And then game 7, the very next round against Chris Webber and the Kings, 30 and 19 in game 7 to make his first ever Western Conference Finals. This is an important moment for Dirk. Dirk's still young. It's his 3rd playoff run ever. He carries a Mavs team to the Western Conference Finals, and in the Western Conference Finals in game 1, has 38 and 15 in game 1, but then he got hurt in game 3, and that was a wrap for them. Now they're done. Goodbye. Good night. You're out of there. Spurs end up, obviously, winning the series. They also end up winning the title that year. Could The Mavs, if Dirk doesn't get hurt, do they win that title? Do those Mavs beat the Nets of 03? Of course they do. But he didn't get the opportunity. He got hurt. 06, round one, playing Memphis. Averages 31-8 and sweeps them. Game 7, Western Conference semis, an iconic Dirk Nowitzki moment. He's 37-15 in an overtime win against Duncan. But more importantly, that's the and one, the Ginobili foul to force overtime. Down 3, 21 seconds left in regulation. Dirk drives, gets fouled, makes the layup. It makes the free throw, obviously, goes to overtime, gets to the conference finals. In the conference finals in 06, series tied 2 games apiece. 50-12. Again, let me say that again. He had 50-12 to go up 3-2 on the Suns in the Western Conference Finals. 23-11 average in the finals. So in the finals, the numbers go down a bit, no doubt about it. But you're up against Shaq and D-Wade. He averaged 23-11. And let's not forget about those finals. Games 3, 5, and 6. They lost by a combined 6 points. And in game 3, Dirk had 30.7 rebounds. Game 6, he had 29 points, 15 rebounds, but they lose. At that point, it's like, okay, so Dirk in 03 probably wins the title, but he got hurt. In 06, had some iconic moments. The 50-12 against Nash and Amari and the Suns, the and one in the game 7 against the Spurs. You lose in the finals, so be it. Then 07, they're the 1 seed, and he wins league MVP, and what happens? They lose in round 1 to the We Believe Warriors. He had a bad series, averaged less than 20 points per game, and that's when it was, soft Euro. Dirk can't get it done. The next year, plays Chris Paul with his best Hornets team. Averages 27, 12, and 4, but loses in round 1. The next year, gets to round 2 for the first time in a few years, plays Denver. That's the best Carmelo Denver year. Averages 34, 12, and 4 in the series. Has 44 and 13 in their only win of the series. They lose in 5. And it's like, oh boy, like Dirk's not getting back to the finals. 2010, plays the Spurs in round 1. 3 times in that series, he scored at least 33, but they lose in round 1. And then 2011, the critical run. 2011 playoff run, he has 33, 11, and 4 to close out Portland in round 1. In round 2, he sweeps the 2-time defending champion Lakers and Kobe and far outplayed Kobe. Again, that's not some old, tired Lakers team. They just won back-to-back titles. Dirk swept them out and played better than Kobe in that series. And then the Western Conference Finals again, they're young, but KD, Russ, Harden. Game 1 of those Western Conference Finals, he plays one of the greatest playoff games anyone's ever played. He had 48 points on 15 shots. Dirk Nowitzki had 48 points on 12 of 15 from the field in game 1 of that series. In game 3 of that series, he had another 40-point game. He averaged 32 a game to get back to the finals. So round 1, you play Portland. Okay, that's not some great Portland team. Round 2, you sweep the 2-time defending champs. Round 3, you outplay Durant. You have no other stars on your team. You get to it's a young Durant, but still Durant, Russ, Harden. You get to the finals. In the finals, who's waiting for you? LeBron, Wade, Bosh. And that's all. That story is told as it's LeBron's meltdown, and that did happen. But Dirk still had to take it from him. Averaged 26 and 10 in those finals. And for the playoff run, averaged 28 and 8. He was 1% away from a 50, 45, 95 for the playoff run. For the playoff run, his shooting splits were 49% from the field, 46% from 3, 95% from the line. And then the next year, he's swept by OKC in round 1. Obviously the Thunder team that went to the finals. He averages 27 and 6 for the series. And then that was about it for him. But he was amazing in the postseason early. Then after they made the finals, after 06 before 11, that 7-10 run, it's not that he was terrible except for the 1 year in 07. 07 he was bad, 8, 9, 10, it just lost to better teams. And then back to the finals, one of the most important, impressive rings ever. That gets you number 16 on the list, Dirk Nowitzki. Let's go to a caller.
Hey Nick, Megan O'Leary here, UFC broadcaster and Spurs basketball fan. But the fact that I'm a Spurs fan has nothing to do with my opinion that Dirk on your list is way too high. I mean, yes, he has a ring. Yes, great offensive player, but some of those playoff collapses, how about losing to the number 8 seed Warriors? And the defense, I don't know, questionable. So if he's this high on your list, I'm telling you, Tim Duncan better be top 5.
Okay, well, I'm not going to reveal where Tim Duncan is, but Tim Duncan being around the top 5 is not outrageous at all. Listen, Dirk was not better than Duncan. No one would argue Dirk was better than Duncan. But when you say some of those playoff collapses, it's really just one. Just one true playoff collapse. Again, 03 would have won the title if he doesn't get hurt. You can't tell me differently. And it was outplaying Tim Duncan in that series until he got hurt. 06 gets to the finals. Tough confluence of events with the officiating and D. Wade having one of the greatest 4-game stretches in NBA history. Then takes his lumps in 07. Again, no superstars, no top 75. Well, Jason Kidd's top 75 guy on the 11 team, but he wasn't in his top 75 form when he did it. He was a good player, but not a great player. And Dirk carries him to a ring. 6th all-time leading scorer, won an MVP, a few other top 3 MVP finishes. Unreal playoff run and some great playoff numbers. Dirk Nowitzki, your 16th best player of the last 50 years. Next week, we will get into the player who I believe to be disrespected by history and disrespected by modern analytics more than any other player in NBA history. He'll lead off our list as we get into the top 15 next week on the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years on What's Right with Nick Wright. Hey, thanks for watching. Smash or just lightly tap that subscribe button. It all works the same. To get more from the show, and make sure you click. Why don't you want to mash the bell too, guys? Or just, lightly tap the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just hit the link in the description below.